So welcome to the TMD show, episode number 4. I'm here with Amy Schwartz, and she is an avid traveler, and we are going to be diving into some cool travel stories. Let's go.
You crazy mother.
Awesome. Absolutely love that. I can never get enough of that tune. I definitely, I've said this in the last episode as well. I need to update that video. I've got some stock images in there. I've got lots more footage that I could chuck into that intro. But anyway, Amy, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to jump on. And a huge shout out to Jacob Merrick. He is the awesome guy that connected us. So hopefully you are watching this, Jacob.
Thanks, Jacob.
Yeah, awesome guy. We jumped on a call, what was it, like 3 weeks ago? And we like started sharing some travel stories. Like, you have to come on to the show and share some of them. You've done a lot of cool stuff.
As have you.
Oh, well, I nowhere near as long as you have, but hopefully I'm going to have just as many
cool. More wrinkles, so.
But yeah, so everybody that's tuning into the Facebook live session, please feel free to fire away questions to Amy and I if you have them throughout the show. If you are listening to this on the podcast, then go to the show notes page, tmdshow.com/S1E4, and throw any questions that you have, comments that you have for Amy and I over there, and we'll jump in and answer any questions that you do have. But Amy, we are here live, so do you want to let all the dudes and dudettes tuning in know who you are and what it is that you're up to online?
Sure. My name is Amy Schwartz, and I guess we got connected because I had been chatting with Jacob about a business that my partner and I had just started, which is a remote working surfing company. So basically, we're going to be taking people who kind of want to get off the beaten path a little bit to surf, or places that are really excellent surf spots where you can easily surf every day, all the time, and also get your work done. So we're going to set up everything so people can work remotely, do awesome stuff every day, and as I said, walk barefoot everywhere and surf every day. So that's kind of the lifestyle that we are aiming to live and have lived in the past. And so we've started a business so we can enable other people to do the same.
Yeah, and I really like the idea that you have as well, because you were telling me that, you know, the plan is to have it as a sort of like a 6 month, potentially a 6 month long like excursion for the people that are interested in doing that, where you're going to be traveling to like 3 different countries, and yeah, lots of business stuff, lots of surfing, which I should have taken up when I was in Australia, but we could dive into that a little bit later. Yeah. But yeah, to just let people know sort of like what the plans are right now for those like excursions for your business.
Sure. So actually, we've decided we're going to do 2. We've split it up into 2-month sections. So our feeling, we've kind of set it up in a way that is the way that we enjoy traveling, which is kind of staying in a place and really getting to know it before kind of moving on to the next place. So we picked 2 places. One is in Arica, Chile, which is in northern Chile, and the other is in Huanchaco, Peru. And so both of these places for surfers have a wide variety of waves. So anyone from like a advanced beginner to kind of an advanced intermediate would be really satisfied in these places. But we've also picked places that I think I mentioned to you that have kind of already have a lot of culture happening. It's not just a tourist town. It didn't just kind of develop around surfing, but there's lots of really cool stuff to do there in addition to surfing. So if you're just a dude who surfs, you might not, you can still just surf, but if you're not just a dude who only surfs, you can find lots of really cool things to do in each place. There's tons of archaeological sites and really great places to get like pedicures and massages, and also to go check out national parks and go hiking. The pedicure and massage thing is always really important to me.
Oh, I'm sure guys would be lying if they hadn't at least thought about doing one of those. I don't like pedicures. I don't like people touching my feet, but one of my guilty pleasures are manicures. I like it when people sit there like playing with my hands, which is but sorry, continue.
I'm so glad you readily admit to that, because so many people won't when I tell them like it's an important part of, when you travel, experiencing the aesthetics in each place is and actually in Costa Rica, they do these for women, they do these really amazing little designs on your nails. But I always would see men in the like nail salons there getting their hands done. I was like, why can't the men where I live be so kind of open about getting their hands done? So kudos to you.
Thank you. But one thing I do sort of like kick myself for quite regularly is that I did spend a month in Thailand, and I never got a single massage when I was there. And it's like the place to go when you want like... Yeah, exactly. It's like the place to go when you want to have a good massage, or at least a cheap massage. And never got it done.
Changing massage, like honestly, the way that like that's an experience. You have to go back.
Oh, definitely. I do have plans to go back eventually. Definitely Chiang Mai is high up on the list, like one of the biggest digital nomad hotspots in the world. Yeah, right. But yeah, there's a lot of places on my list. But definitely will be taking up or doing some massages when I'm in Thailand next time.
Well, it's funny you should mention that, because one of the surf towns that is one of the Unleashed destinations is Huanchaco, Peru. And I've lived there a couple times, but the last time I was there, I discovered this like sign while I was on a bus that said Thai massage. Mm-hmm. I was like, what? How is this possible? Like, you never run into, I had never run into a Thai person in Peru, and I'd lived there. And sure enough, this woman had set up this incredible, like 2-story Thai spa and massage place. And she'd actually met her husband on a cruise ship, because there's tons of Thai people and tons of Peruvians who work on cruise ships. And then they decided, they had a kid, decided to set up shop there. And so I was in basically the other side of the globe to Thailand, and still able to get a Thai massage. So that's
pretty funny.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's.
So I digress.
No. That's the whole idea of this episode. We are here to share travel stories. Normally we talk about a business or a travel topic on this show, and one of the best things, one of people's favorite parts, is the travel story that people share at the end of every episode. So every 4th episode in each season, so episodes 4, 8, and 12 in every season from now onwards is going to be purely a travel episode, and you are the lucky person that gets to come on and be the very first travel story episode in this new seasonal based show that we are now doing over at That Marketing Dude. So again, welcome onto the show. One thing I do want to dive into with you, because you did share a lot of stories that you could potentially talk about on the show, and there was one in particular that I wanted to ask some more questions around, because it was the one where you mentioned in the email about hitchhiking in Patagonia in Argentina. Now, I've had somebody on the show once before talking about Patagonia in Argentina, and they said it was absolutely beautiful. So I just wanted to quickly dive into, like, how was it like hitchhiking through Argentina?
There's all kinds of stories there, but the short answer is it was amazing. It was one of the best experiences of my life. I'd never planned to hitchhike in Argentina. I just kind of ended up in this one town and wanted to get to another town. And so the area that I hitchhiked is called Route 40. And I think it's like one of the longest highways in the world. But when you kind of Wikipedia it doesn't really tell you that it's also, I'm pretty sure, one of the emptiest and windiest highways in the world. So I met this British girl while I was traveling. I was traveling on my own. And she and I hiked the Torres del Paine, that park in Chile, together, and did like a 10-day circuit there. And then we both ended up in another town together in the south of Argentina. And we're like, well, why don't we, like, let's travel a little bit more together. So we were both kind of cheap, and we were like, well, let's not take buses. Let's, like, you know, I think we saw a sign up. That was it. We saw a sign up in a hostel that was a Venezuelan family had room in their Volkswagen van to drive people up to Bariloche. Mm-hmm. So we were like, that sounds cool. Let's hook up with them. So we met them, and they had this like first generation Volkswagen bus, and they had these like giant horns tied to the front of it. Anyways, it was classic in every sense of the word. And this family had just said yes to like a Belgian guy and I think an Israeli guy. So they were like, you know what, we can't take any more people. It's going to weigh down the van too much. But at this point, we had the idea in our head, like, we want to do this. We want to get there. So we were like, why don't we hitchhike? And I don't think I'd ever really hitchhiked in my life before. So it was like, how bad could this really be? So anyway, we were told that we should make sure that we don't camp overnight anywhere along this highway because the winds get so bad that they will literally slice your tent in two.
Wow.
So yeah, I couldn't even imagine that at the time. So we started out, and it was probably like 3 or 4 in the afternoon. Of course, could not get a ride. Started to see what people meant about these winds, and eventually kind of asked somebody if we could stay in their house for the night. Because there was, I think this was, you know, probably 10, 15 years ago. It wasn't as touristy in Argentina as I think it would be now. I don't know if this is what would happen now. Anyway, next day we get out on the road first thing, and we're on this like part of dirt road trying to hitchhike. Nothing goes by for hours and hours and hours. And we're getting really kind of sad and angry. We finally decide, you know what, if anything goes by, we're going to walk out to the middle of the road and just stop them, just wave our hands and say, stop. So this giant truck starts coming towards us, and we do it. We made this, you know, pact that we're going to do this and get out into the middle of the road. So we do. And this like really creepy looking dude gets out of his truck, this massive truck. And I generally have a rule that creepy looking dudes, as a woman traveling alone or with another woman, there's no need to take an extra risk. So just avoid. But we were really just at this point. So, and he was very quiet, and I spoke enough Spanish to say, like, can we get a ride? And he said, yeah, okay, fine. But very short with us. And then kind of threw our bags into the back of this big, like, truck. It was like one of those cement truck sizes, but it wasn't a cement truck. Anyway, so we hop into the cab of the truck, and I look down at my feet as we're about 5 minutes away, and there is a giant rifle.
Wow.
And so I've got this creepy dude with a weird mustache and my British friend who doesn't speak any Spanish sitting next to me. And I'm like, holy, like, I won't use expletives, but like, holy, oh my, all of the expletives, like, what do I do?
Feel free to swear. We do not put any censorship on this show.
Excellent. There's a lot of holy shits and F-bombs in my head. Not out loud because I didn't want to freak my friend out. And so I'm sitting there like trying not to have my feet touch this giant gun. And anyway, because we have like 3 hours before the next town with this guy. And I'm from the East Coast of Canada. I'm a conversationalist. I tried my darndest to have a conversation with this guy, especially if, you know, he was going to take us out back and shoot us. You want to have a chat with him.
You just want to know the guy first.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, no, he didn't say anything. And my friend never did discover the gun until we got out. So I was relieved about that. But anyway, the hitchhiking continued. We ended up and in this town where there was really nothing there except a whole bunch of miners. But we had no choice but to stay the night there. I'll try not to make this story too long because it's like a series of stories. But when we were there, we went to every single motel in this town. And again, we didn't have transportation, and it was a very sort of car-dependent area. Really bleak town, almost entirely men because it was a big mining area. Mm-hmm. And we were like, we need a place to stay. And they said, there is not a single hotel, motel room in this town because all the miners are here. So we were like, well, shit, what do we do? So we're literally sitting at the one gas station in town, kind of borderline crying, because we just got out of this truck with a massive gun and a super creepy dude. And so we were sitting there somewhat feeling sorry for ourselves. And this guy comes bounding over to me and says, I heard there was a Canadian in the gas station. And I was like, that would be me. And he said, what are you doing here? He obviously never sees his compatriots in this small mining town. And he said, what are you guys doing? And I said, well, we're stuck. We're trying to get to this, town that's still another, 500 kilometers away or whatever. And so he said, well, why don't you guys just come with us? And he's like, I work on a gold mine. I've got an estancia, which is like a ranch, basically, that I bought in the middle of nowhere. And again, normally traveling as a woman, I'd be like, well, maybe you shouldn't just jump into a truck with these two random dudes. But we were also, again, like, well, it's either that or stay at the gas station. So this guy ended up he was just awesome. Like, for all I know now, he's a multi-million billionaire because he was head of a gold mining company. And they fed us, gave us tons of wine, like big chickens, and we stayed in this like old estancia. The next day, and we literally just like drove, it wasn't even on roads, like drove through fields. The next day we drove through fields and met this like old gaucho, like real Argentinian, like cowboy.
Yeah.
Anyway, and shared some mate with him. And then they took us kind of to the next town. Anyway, this story could go on, but I'll stop there because I don't want to use up all the time. But
no, it's about to say, it's a very interesting story because I did a little bit of hitchhiking when I lived in Fiji, and thank God nothing like that where like ended up going to some like random place where I didn't know anybody, and they speak very good English in Fiji as well. Yeah. But it was really common. Like everybody stands on the side of the road to hitchhike because like buses and that type of stuff, they're very inconsistent out there. And when you do hitchhike with someone or someone picks you up and hitchhike, it's very customary to like give them money. Like even if it was just like $1, doesn't really matter what it is. You give them money. But very, very different experience for you and your hitchhiking in Argentina.
Well, it sounds like it's very efficient in Fiji. I love that kind of a system.
Yeah.
It's Uber when you can, when everyone's willing to pick each other up.
Exactly. And Laurie is watching live right now, and she asked, have you ever been to Alaska? Is that a country that you've been to yet?
Never. No, but I have been to the Yukon, which is the like northwest part of Canada. Unbelievable.
What time of year were you there?
I was actually there probably around this time of year, about 2 years ago.
Okay.
One of my best friends in the world, who I hope is watching, is a park ranger in the Kluane National Park there. So she's the one who does all the crazy rescues and like animal encounter stuff. And by animal encounter, I mean like grizzly stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I lived out in the mountains out west for a little while, and it was absolutely beautiful. I don't think I ever saw an. Actually, no, I tell a lie. I did see a bear when I went to Lake Louise. That was during the summer, but in the winter I lived on the mountains as well, and absolutely beautiful. And Laurie asked another question: Is there anything that she should know before she goes traveling out there? Are you talking about traveling out to the Yukon or just out west in Canada in general? But yeah, do you have any advice for like Laurie if it was the Yukon that she wanted to go to?
Go hiking.
Yes. Yeah, if you're going to go to any part in like the Yukon or like the western half of Canada, the mountains out there are so beautiful that you have to do a lot of hiking. If you don't do any hiking at all, go get yourself a pair of walking boots and get practicing, because it is quite tiring, especially if you're going to be doing it all day. But
canoeing. And the other piece of advice, because I was asking my friend about this recently, is go in June. Weather's always good, and you get almost 24 hours of sunlight. Yeah. But I want to turn the tables on you, because you dropped a bomb just before.
Go.
just before we went on, that you are writing, and forgive me if you've already mentioned this on your other podcast, but it was really interesting to me that you're writing a book on drinking, or you wrote a book on drinking games while you were in Fiji. So lots of interesting things obviously happened in Fiji that I would love to know more about.
Yeah, so a lot of things happened in Fiji, which again, could be a whole podcast episode by itself. But yeah, so I was out in Fiji working as a scuba diving instructor out there. I managed to get a visa that would allow me to stay out there for 6 months. And whilst I was there, the resort that I used to live on, it was a family-run resort. And so first off, it was in a remote part of Fiji as well. It took like 5 hours by boat to get there. It was at the top of the Yasawa Islands in the northwest. And yeah, so the boat used to come up, and it was a very popular resort amongst backpackers. So the majority of the people that would come there were, probably between like 18 and like 25, all young, looking to party and all that sort of stuff. And I was there getting people to scuba dive. So it was very popular for scuba diving, but because it was a family-run resort, all of the people that worked in the resort like lived on the island too. So when they had to go to bed, they'd finish work around like 8:30 in the evening, doing entertainment whilst dinner was going on. But then they had to be up for like 5-6 o'clock in the morning to get everything ready in the resort. So yeah, everything would finish around 8:30. But the really cool thing is that the bar never closed down until the last person went to bed. So I was like, look, I'm not going to spend 6 months in Fiji and just work. I'm here to have fun as well. Yeah. So I was building my business at the time, but the internet out there was very, very slow. So everything business related took a little time to get going. But there was a lot of drinking going on in the evening. So I would get people in playing drinking games in the evenings because, like I said, this is my holiday as well, and it was the only thing to do on the island after like 8:30. So one day, so used to scuba dive as well. One of the dives that we used to do is a big shark feeding dive, and one of the things that you shouldn't do when you're diving is that you're not supposed to consume any alcohol 8 hours before a dive. I broke that rule so many times. I'm lucky to be alive. But the whole point of the story, how the book came about, was one day I worked all day doing the diving. I'd have to open up the dive shop at 7 in the morning, dive all day, have dinner, and then would drink all night. Literally did not get any sleep whatsoever that night. Then diving again all day. Actually, it was just the mornings, but thankfully jumping in the water woke me up. But not so well for the alcohol consumption and diving. But woke up and was diving throughout the day, and then I did not go to bed until like 10 o'clock that night. But because there was a bunch of like backpackers that were coming and going on the island, and it was like an island hopping as well. So people would normally spend about 2 weeks in the Yasawa Islands, and they'd maybe see like 5 different resorts. And so people were coming and going, and I was getting introduced to all the new people as the drinking games coordinator rather than the scuba diving instructor. And I remember this one guy, what's his name? I think his name was Tuki. I think that's what we called him. Tuki was his name. And he said, he was there with like 3 other guys and said, hey, Luke, come play drinking games with us. I was like, I really can't. I've been awake for like 40 hours. I need to go get some sleep. And they said, okay, that's cool. Play tomorrow? I was like, of course, we'll play tomorrow. They said, give us a game that we can play. And I could not think of a single one. My brain was completely fried. So the next day, I started writing the games down. And it got to the point where instead of like trying to think of games, I just throw this book on the table, say, hey, read through the book and, pick a game from there. And then people would be like, oh, have you got such and such a game in there? Have you got this game in there? I'm like, no, I haven't. Here's a pen. I got them to write it in themselves. Cool. So to make this story a short story, in the last 3 weeks that I was in Fiji, the book grew to 39 games from 10 different countries. And I got people to sign the front of the book. Just when they play games, I had 68 signatures on the front of the book within 3 weeks. Wow. So right now I'm looking at getting it self-publishing the book, trying to keep it as real and as authentic as the original books. There's going to be loads of blank pages in there that people can write in their own games. I've got a digital version of the book available right now, and on that I have like the person's name, where they're from, and their flag of their country in the corner of the book. So I'm going to do that as well with the printed one. I've got somebody designing some images right now to put in the book. So there's loads of hand-drawn pictures in the book too. So I'm just getting to the design some so it actually look semi-decent, but still look like they've been hand-drawn. And that's all going to go in there. So hopefully, fingers crossed, within the next 3-4 weeks, I should have like a proof copy from Amazon, and it should be ready to go, and everybody can, enjoy playing the book. And also, like, I'm going to get the front cover designed like the original hand-drawn version of the book has, with signatures on the front. There's beer stains on it, wine stains as well. There's like me and these 3 other girls, we rewrote the Lord's Prayer and turned it into the Drinker's Prayer. So like, there's a prayer that you can read out before you start playing games. And the reason why we did the prayer thing is because I ended up calling the book the Holy Bible of Drinking Games. And so that's how that book came around. That's
amazing. That's such a great story. That is totally too like one of those books you would see in a fancy design shop or like Urban Outfitters. One of their stuff, like, you know what I mean? Like, here's cool books you need to check out.
Yeah, so that was funny actually. So I was at a business event last year, and I was talking to somebody about getting the book done and like getting it published. And I was talking about, potentially it could be an app as well. And that was actually one of the shops that she said, I should try and get it into once it's like properly published. Try get it into Urban Outfitters, or I can't remember the name of the other one, but lots of like boutique little shops as well. There's one here in Toronto that sells like all these weird and fancy sort of like drinking utensils and like shot glasses and like cocktail mixers and all that sort of stuff. But they also have books as well in there. So it'd be pretty cool if I could rock up with, I don't know, like 10 copies of my book, and they can put it in their store and see if how popular it becomes.
I'm sure I'm buy one of those.
I'm really excited to see how well that the book goes down, because the digital version of the book is pretty popular, especially in Australia. Weirdly enough, like the most of the sales of that book has been in Australia. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with the drinking games thing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome.
Cool. So we are going to have to tie this up into a little bow shortly, but there's one other quick story I have to get from you, and try to like sum this up as short as you can if it's possible.
Sure.
But you mentioned about something about being in Brazil and like being at the Carnival, and that is one of the things that I've really, really wanted to do, is go to the Brazilian Carnival. Can you just like talk about some of your experiences there?
Sure. I'll try to keep this short. For about 12 years, I did capoeira. Mm-hmm. And so I went and stayed with my capoeira instructors in a town called Olinda in Recife. Mm-hmm. And that's, for any of your listeners, if you want to go to Carnival and experience like the true Brazilian Carnival and see like amazing folkloric dance and like real color, but none of these like big like like floats, you know what? 'Cause I think that's what it's like in most places. I mean, I'm sure it's unbelievable in Rio and whatever, but Olinda is like, you see really traditional, beautiful dancing. Anyway, long story short is I went and did that about 3, 4, 5, maybe more years ago. And because I had these friends who were really musical people, really involved in the artistic community, they like threw me into these, big, like, what do you call it? Like marching bands. So I got to play like it's called the Agogo, which is the ding, 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 ding. I don't know what it is.
I have to try and find a picture and put it into the show notes.
Yeah, it's like the two mini cowbells. So anyway, I got to play that for a Maracatu band, which is a really awesome like beat, like really big, deep beat. And there they have these giant like Maracatu, like royal families that dance. Mm-hmm. So that was just, I mean, it's like sensually like the most incredible experience, just what you see and hear and also drink. They have these like tiny stands that every person, like probably every Tom, Dick, and Harry sets up in town, and make like 5 different drinks that are, well, at the time were super cheap and so delicious. And you just always get to have like drinks with guaraná, which is an energetic. to keep going all night, a harmless energetic. But there's a whole other story with that. I tried to bring some guarana home and got in the local customs office in my town thought it was opioids because they found something in it, which I didn't put in it. Anyway, almost got arrested. It was fantastic. That's for a whole other podcast. I shouldn't have brought it up like that. Swear I'm not a criminal.
Oh, no. That's definitely candidate for coming back on just to share that story alone.
It's just when you have, like, I have an issue with I always want to bring food back, and certain foods you can't get at home, and I've gotten in trouble on basically every occasion. I need to stop.
No, you don't, because that's some of the best stories. The stories where you almost get arrested. They're the ones that, you know, make people a little bit jealous that, oh my God, you've lived such an awesome life.
Yeah, I don't know. My mother did not enjoy that phone call of like, I'm going to be another hour or so.
That's funny. Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure talking to you all about travel stories. But before you do go, we do have the standard rapid fire question session to go through. And you don't know any of these questions, but I want the first thing that comes to your head, first thing that you think of, and hopefully there's nothing that really needs an explanation, but there's always been at least one person that has to explain something with their answers. But with that being said, are you ready to dive into the rapid fire questions?
I'm ready.
Excellent.
To go.
Cool. So the very first question is, what is your favorite country that you've traveled to so far?
Oh, that's such a cruel
That
question.
is a tough one. Yeah, for the people that have a crap ton of travel stories, it's hard to do this, but
okay, as a child, it was always Nepal. I was obsessed with Nepal. As an adult, currently it's Peru, I would say.
Okay, cool. Question number 2. What is the last...
Easter Island also. Went to Easter Island recently.
Okay.
Unbelievable.
Okay, can certainly do that as well. Like, Easter Island is one of those places that I'd really like to go to too. Question number 2. What is the last YouTube video or movie that you've watched?
Probably, well, YouTube video. So there's this Canadian female comedy troupe or all-women comedy troupe called Baroness Von Sketch. It probably shows up in your feed because you're in Toronto. Anyway, they're kind of raunchy and hilarious. So I've probably watched one of their raunchy skits.
Okay, cool. Question number 3. What is the weirdest thing that you've ever eaten?
Oh, boy. Jeez. Probably cockroach. There's probably weirder things that I've eaten and didn't know because I will just like eat anything off the street. Because I spent a lot of time in Asia as a child, so I have a lot of stomach, I have a very strong stomach, so I can get away with it.
Okay, I'll take cockroaches. That's pretty disgusting. Question number 4. Mountains or beaches?
Oh, probably both, but beaches if I have to pick.
Beaches, cool.
Interesting beaches.
Interesting beaches. Special beaches. Question number 5. If you can meet one person, living or dead, who would it be?
Oh. Who would it be? Living or dead? Do you know what? I would love to meet Michelle Obama. I know it's probably super cliche, but she's just so badass.
I tell you what, I don't think out of like the 40-odd episodes I've done of the show, I don't think anybody said Michelle Obama. Any of the huge fans of the show listening, I know there are some. If somebody has said that, please correct me, but I'm pretty sure Michelle Obama, no one has said yet.
But only if we could have a dance party, because she's got rhythm.
Oh, yeah, she did that, was it the carpool karaoke thing with James Corden and like Missy Elliott was there? Yeah, she'll definitely be down for a dance party. Question number 6, are you a day person or a night owl?
Oh, day person for sure.
Day person, awesome. Number 7, what is your go-to pump me up song?
So I'm pretty sure, I know that one of your guests has already said this, so I'm not going to say Danza Kuduro. But, so I am going to say my go-to pump-up song is Pressure Drop by Toots and the Maytals, which is like a classic reggae song.
Okay.
Everybody go download it.
Definitely have to go check that one out. Question number 8. What is your favorite non-English swear word? Curse word? Whatever you want to say.
in Quebec and in the like Acadian Îles de la Madeleine in Canada, a lot of people say tabernacle, which is kind of a Catholic swear word. But in the Madeleine Islands, my first French teacher was from the Madeleine Islands. She would say tabarnouche, which I think is really unique. So that's kind of my favorite.
But what does it mean though?
I think, do you know what? You should get some of your Quebecois listeners to say. It's like cursing the church somehow or something. Someone will correct me on that.
Okay, again, people listening in, give us the answer to that one. Leave us in the comments, or if you're watching live, throw that in there if you know it. I used to live with some French people a while back, and this was back when I was like learning to become a scuba diving instructor, and my favorite swear word, just because of the girl that used to live there, was putain, which means sort of like for fuck's sake or something like that. And it'd be really funny because they'd be sort of like her and the boyfriend would be in the kitchen, both French, they'd be speaking in French, blah, blah, blah. And then when somebody walked into the kitchen, they'd instantly flip into English. And then in the second that person walked out, straight back into French again. But when you could hear her stressed out, you hear, no matter where you are in the house, all you could hear was, putain! And every single time made me giggle. It was so funny.
Well, careful you don't order a poutine when you're trying to order poutine.
Poutine, yeah. I'll have some putain, please.
I'm sure it's happened many, many times.
Probably, I wouldn't be surprised. Question number 9. What is your favorite podcast apart from this one?
Apart from this
one.
I really enjoy the Startup podcast by Gimlet, but I recently had a baby, so I have to give a plug for this fantastic podcast called Birthful, which is, if there's any pregnant listeners out there, go listen to almost all of her episodes.
Perfect. I can definitely pass that one on. And finally, very last question. Can you give me your best travel story that you have in under 5 minutes? Again, probably an extremely difficult question for you.
Well, do you know what? Your drinking games thing reminded me of something, and a friend of mine reminded me of this before I came on, because I have a terrible memory, actually, which is why I actually sent you all those notes, so I would remember. But I was, again, in Peru, probably 2 years ago, and in Peru, the kind of national drink is Pisco. Have you ever had Pisco before?
Nope.
So Peruvians are very like protective of it being like there's a terroir for Pisco. Like if you're from Chile and you have Pisco, really Chileans don't have Pisco according to Peruvians. Anyway, that's a whole other debate. But I was in this winery, this kind of new winery, but old Pisco maker place, or Pisco factory, I guess you'd call it. And anyway, there was this beautiful hotel there. They just had a Groupon, so I was there with a friend, and actually my dad was with me at the time. So anyway, they said, oh, well, there's actually a bunch of sommeliers here that are doing a Pisco tasting. Why don't you just go and join them? Which I don't think they normally would have done, but it was a new hotel and blah, blah, blah. So we kind of sneak in at the back, and I'm sitting there, and they give us like a tasting sheet. So you have these different kinds of cups, and then they do like a sheet where it says, here's the different kinds of Pisco, because there's like 4 or 5 different kinds, different grapes. And then they gave you 5 different glasses and said, you're going to taste them and then put them down on whichever it kind of corresponds with. Anyway, before they let us do any of the tasting, they showed us a video and they talked about this and that about Pisco. And then, so there's like 35 sommeliers in the room, something like that. And then these weird Western gringas who just showed up. Like they all stared at when we walked in. So anyway, but they let us participate. So they all go around and do this tasting, and you do the corresponding thing, and then they check them off. And turns out, there was only 3 to 4. There was a handful of us who got them all right, and I was one of them. So then I really got some stares of like, how the hell does this gringa who speaks Spanish with a terrible accent know more about Pisco than like 90% of this room? So anyway, then we had to do a second round. So we did the second round, and we had to taste 2 more. And at this point, you didn't have to they didn't have to find the corresponding one. You just had to say what kind of grape it was. I had just had my first tutorial on what grape has what flavor. two of us won the second round. So I won, as did this other sommelier. And again, like just embarrassed everyone. Everyone in the room, they're like, who is this girl? And how the hell did she just call out the grape? So anyway, we each got a very special bottle of Pisco to kind of, reward us. And then I found out the next day, because I was hanging out with this group, we did a tour together, that they were literally from all of the top-notch restaurants.
Wow.
And they weren't just like restaurateurs, they were the sommeliers from each of those restaurants. So I hadn't just beaten your average taste tester. So anyway, I had regret for not following another career path at that point.
Well, I think you found your calling.
Yeah, I know it might be a bit late, but anyway, one of the ironies of it is I was living with the wine director for now one of the top 50 restaurants in the world called Central in Lima, and I was living with him in this house. So and he's a very talented sommelier. So anyway, I had got real bragging rights when I got to see him again.
Love it.
Yeah, one of my proudest moments.
Tamara and on the live chat, she said about Pisco sours. I think she's a big fan of those. Have you ever tried a Pisco sour?
Pisco sour, yeah, you could drink them 24/7. Well, you shouldn't. You should not drink them 24/7.
Well, there's a challenge right there.
No, I won't take it.
It could be the perfect drink to play or to use when you're playing drinking games. You never know.
Sure there's a Pisco sour drinking game that you need to discover.
Definitely. Cool. Well, Amy, thank you so much for coming onto today's show. Absolute pleasure. Awesome stories. Definitely gonna have to bring you back onto the show. But for everybody that's tuning in right now, whereabouts can they find you online?
Sure. You can find Unleash Surf at www.unleashsurf.com to learn more about the trips that we have upcoming in 2018. It's going to be amazing. And then you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Unleash Surf.
Perfect. And all of that is all linked in the show notes for today's episode, which for those of you watching on Facebook Live, it's on your screen already. It's been on the screen the entire time. Please feel free to go over there. For those listening on the podcast, that is over at tmdshow.com/S1E4. That's for season 1, episode 4. Go check all of that out. Go show Amy some love. If you're interested in surf, I would definitely recommend checking out the trips that she's planning on doing with her partner. It's going to be a hell of a lot of fun. So Amy, again, thank you so much for coming onto today's show, and we'll definitely have to have you back on again soon.
Thanks, I had a ball, and I hope to meet you in the water someday.
Fingers crossed, it's going to happen. Take care.
Thanks.
And there you have it, guys. That is another episode in the books, all wrapped up. How awesome was that? Amy is awesome. We're definitely going to have to bring her back on again to share some more stories. And again, if you want to check out any of the links to Amy's stuff, what it is she's got going on, you'll find that in the show notes for today's episode. tmdshow.com/S1E4. Very first travel episode story done on Facebook Live. For those of you that have been listening to the podcast, it's just another one in the books for you guys. So again, thank you so much for tuning in. If there is anybody who you know has a load of cool travel stories, whether they're an online businessman, a digital nomad, location independent, whatever, and you think that they have a lot of cool travel stories that we can talk about on the show, send them my way. Get them to send me an email, luke@thatmarketingdude.com, and I'd love to chat with them and hopefully bring them on to the show. So for those of you who are listening to this on Facebook Live right now, make sure you go ahead and like the page. Go ahead and join the group as well at dudebrood.com. That'll redirect you to our Facebook group, Facebook community, and you can check the shows in there as well. They go down every single Monday, live, 5 p.m. EST. And for those of you listening to the podcast, make sure you hit subscribe and get all of the episodes into your whatever podcast player that you're listening to the show on right now. Make sure you subscribe and you'll get the next episode in your device, tablet, thing, whatever you're listening to it on. And make sure you don't miss a show again. Next week is going to be an awesome episode. I'm not going to tell you who their guest is just yet. I want to keep that one a secret. But here's a hint. She was on the show. She was tuned in and asked some questions. So if you want to jump on and learn how to do a lot of Facebook Live stuff yourself, then make sure you tune into the next episode. But until then, all dudes and dudettes, have a great day, have a great week, and I will catch you in the next episode. Peace out, fist bump.